Hello, and welcome to another episode of At Home with APS. I'm Mrs. K, and I'm joined by three other really talented teachers today, Miss Kathy, Miss Kraft, and Miss Lori. And we've worked together to create an English language arts lesson that I think you're really going to enjoy. This lesson is geared toward our second and third grade population, but students and adults of all ages are welcome. We're so glad that you're here with us. I can't wait to get started. So last week, we started a new thematic unit focused on earth science. We're going to continue that unit today. And today, our focus is going to be seeds. Oh, I love seeds because I love plants. And I know that plants come from seeds. I bet you already know a lot of interesting facts about seeds. Maybe you'll learn some more today. Now, you know that I usually start our lesson with the word of the day. But guess what? We're going to change this time together a little bit today because I know that you're ready for a new challenge. Our word of the day today is disperse. Say that word again with me. Disperse. Have you heard this word before? Now, typically, I show you the definition. But you know what? Today, I'm going to keep it a secret. Because we're going to work together to figure out this definition together. Let me tell you how and why we're going to do it this way. Well, first of all, we're going to use a tool, our reading skills, to look for some context clues. Those context clues will help us figure out the meaning of this word. Also, while we're reading, we're going to focus on two important skills. One is reading fluency, and the other is reading comprehension. Let's talk about fluency. Maybe you've heard that word at school. Now, when we're first learning how to read, we sound out individual sounds and read individual words. So when we're reading a sentence, we might kind of sound like a robot just because we say one word at a time. But as we become better readers, we read with more fluency. That means we read the words correctly. It means we read with expression, so we read the way we talk. And it means that we read at an appropriate rate. We don't read too fast, and we don't read too slow. If you're still kind of sounding like a robot when you read, that's okay. We all start that way. But I'm going to show you some ways to practice reading with more fluency today. We're also going to be focused on comprehension. That means that we understand what we're reading. If we read with more fluency, it's easier for us to understand the words that we're reading. And if we understand the words that we're reading, we're going to be able to figure out the definition to our word. Oh, it's going to be exciting. Are you ready? Come over here with me. We have two sections of sentences here. We're just going to focus on the top part, above the squiggly line. Now, our word of the day, disperse, is in this sentence. I want us to work together to read this sentence 3 times. The first time, you're going to read it by yourself at home. Go ahead and read it out loud. The second time, we're going to read it together. And the third time, we're going to make sure that we understand what we're reading. Okay, I'm going to point to the words to help you. You go ahead and read it out in your clearest voice.
Yes, I think that is a whole application for
Excellent reading. Kiss your brain. Nice work. Now let's read it together. You know, sometimes when we do a cold read, when we read something the first time, we do kind of sound like a robot. This time, let's try to read this with fluency. We're going to read the way we talk. Let's do it together. Oh, what? Why did I put this down? Silly Mrs. K. Ready? 4 friends disperse $20 equally. That means each friend gets $5. Self-check. Did you read the way you talked? Did you read with expression? Let me show you a way to visually represent reading with fluency. It's called swooping. Have you heard that before? We're going to swoop groups of letters to remind us to read with fluency. Because when we read with fluency, we make natural pauses. We don't sound like a robot. Watch what I do. 4 friends disperse. I made a mistake. Sometimes good readers make a mistake. That's okay. I'll just go back and read it again. 4 friends disperse $20 equally. Now, when I'm reading this, did you notice I kind of made a pause here? So it sounded like this. 4 friends disperse $20 equally. Let's do it with this sentence. Notice where I pause and where I should swoop my letters or my words. That means each friend gets $5. Swoop it with your finger. That means each friend gets $5. Wow. Now, if I go back and read these sentences, I'm going to read them with more fluency. Let's do it one time together. 4 friends disperse $20 equally. That means each friend gets $5. Great fluency, friends. Now, let's work on our comprehension. What does this mean? What happened in these sentences? Yeah, some friends were sharing money. I drew a picture to help me understand. We had $20, and these 4 friends, they each got $5. This money was dispersed. So what does disperse mean? Yeah, we kind of spread it out or pass it out. I think we're on our way to understanding this word. Let's do our next sentence. This time I want you to read this sentence again out loud at home. Read it in your clearest voice. Remember, we have the word disperse hidden in there. You go ahead and read it. I'll point to the words for you. Wow, excellent job. This time, instead of kissing your brain, give yourself a big pat on the back. Wonderful reading. Let's do it together. This time we're going to read it with some more fluency, some more expression. The dandelions in the field disperse their seeds using the power of the wind. Let's swoop this together. The dandelions in the field. Oh, that sounds like one swoop. The dandelions, it's a long one, in the field disperse their seeds. Oh, that's my next swoop. Disperse their seeds using the power of the wind. Let's read it again together with our swoops. The dandelions in the field disperse their seeds using the power of the wind. So much fluency and expression. Well done, readers. For our adults that are watching, this is a fun activity you can do with your young readers. You can write sentences that they're able to read and have them practice swooping the words to practice their fluency. Okay, now let's get back to our mission. Dandelions. What are these dandelions doing? Do you know what a dandelion is? I brought a picture. They're these yellow flowers. I have a lot of these in my neighborhood. They kind of pop up in between the cracks in the sidewalk. They also end up looking like this. Have you seen these? When I was your age, I liked to pick them and blow the seeds all over my backyard. So that seems to be what's happening here. The dandelions in the field disperse their seeds using the power of the wind. What's happening in this picture? Yeah, the seeds are moving around, aren't they? The wind is blowing them so that they can move around and grow somewhere new. So what does this word disperse mean? Well, I think we figured out that it means moving things around, spreading things around, moving things to different places. Kind of like our friends spread out their money, and our dandelion seeds dispersed their seeds, moved them around. Let's read the definition, see if we were right. Ooh, we were super close. Distribute or spread over a wide area. Great job, learners. We figured it out using our reading skills, our fluency, and our comprehension. Now, briefly, let's think about why seeds might need to be dispersed. Why do seeds need to move around? Yeah, because seeds need space. They also need water and light and soil. But they need space so that their roots can grow and so that they can grow. Here in a little bit, you're going to hear a really wonderful story. Miss Kraft is going to read it to you about ways that seeds are dispersed or how they move around. You know, maybe later today you could go on a walk with a grown-up or maybe a brother and sister and look for different seeds. I found these in my neighborhood. Maybe you can find different seeds of your own and think about how they are dispersed or how they move around. Great job, readers. Thank you for working with me. I can't wait to see what Miss Kathy has.
Hello and good morning, readers, and welcome to Word Work with Miss Kathy. I'm so happy to see you all here again today. So we've been working really hard at looking for our multisyllabic words that are a little bit more challenging, and breaking them down into smaller parts that we already know so that we can read hard words. We are not afraid of difficult words anymore because we have a lot of skills that we can use when we see them. So I wanted to remind you, when we see a really big word that we haven't seen before, the first thing we're going to do is say, do I see any parts of this word that I've seen in other words before? Then I'm going to try to sound out the parts I'm not as familiar with. And then I'm going to think, what makes sense? I'm going to try to think really hard about, have I heard a word like this before? Because that'll be a clue for you that you have the correct pronunciation for an unknown word. So I'm going to show you 3 words today. And I'm going to show you just the word, and we're not going to talk about what it means yet. But I want you to look at the word, and I want you to look for parts you may already know. And the first word I picked on purpose to make it a little bit easier as we practice this skill again. Do you recognize this word? That's right. This is our word of the day. We just looked at this word with Miss Kay. Good job, friends. So when we're looking at this word, remember, we're thinking, what parts have I seen before? And when you're doing this, you have two ways you can approach it. I like to fold a word when I see a part that I know. So I see the part dis. I've seen dis before in words. So I can fold that to see what other parts of the word are left that maybe I can chunk out to know the sounds. So I've got disperse, which we already know, but I'm going to underline dis, because we've seen that before in other words. In disappear, dismay. So now I have dis, and I have 5 letters left in my word. Dis, and I've seen this before, P-E-R, I've seen those letters together before, and that's per. Per. I can fold or I can underline per next. So I have disper, and then I have S-E. And remember, we think, what makes sense? Have I heard this before? Disperse. Sometimes we don't say that last vowel sound. So let's try it without saying it. Disperse. That's a word I've heard before with Miss K. Disperse. So using our strategy of looking for parts of words that we know before, we're going to try attacking 2 more words. I believe in you. Don't be afraid. Okay, so my next word, I'm going to hold it up, and I want you to study it for a moment. It's a tricky one. I wanted to challenge you for sure. Okay, so first we're looking for parts of this word that we've seen before. I look at the end of the word, and it reminds me of when we were studying inventions. T-I-O-N makes a shun sound. That's really great news. I'm going to go ahead and underline that. Shun. T-I-O-N. And then I'm going to look back at my word again and look for other parts that I might be able to sound out. I see E and R together. And I think about my R-controlled vowels, and E and R will make an sound. So that's good. I can underline We're getting closer, friends. So I have and shun in here. I see M-I-N, and I think I'm going to try sounding that out. Min, min. I'm going to underline min. Kind of reminds me of minion. Okay. So I have G here, E-R, so in, then I have an A, and then shun. We know that G's can have 2 sounds. They can have a hard G sound, or they can have a soft G sound. So we're going to try it the both ways. Germination. Germination? Let's try it the other way. Soft G sound this time. J, like giraffe. Germination. Germination. That does sound like a word that I've studied before in science. So we found out that our sounds in our word make the word germination. That was tricky, friends. Our last word we're going to attack, I'm going to hold it up for a moment, and you've probably seen it. It's related to our other 2 words. And I want you to go ahead and try looking for parts, study it. Have I seen any parts of this word before? Well, first off, I see shun, T-I-O-N again. Let's go ahead and underline or fold that. And I do see another part in the middle of my word, I-N. I see those letters together often, and it always makes in. Let's go ahead and underline that, friends. Okay, here's where it gets tricky. Because I've seen P-O-L-L together before. Have you seen it before too? Maybe when you were studying government at the beginning of the year. I've seen that as poll, like a place people go to vote. Poll. Pollination? Pollination? Think, what makes sense? I know, pollination. It's very close to a word that I do know, pollination. And I've seen that word alongside germination before. All right, friends. So now that we've practiced our skills of taking apart big, scary words so that we can read them, we need to talk about what those words mean. When you're reading a book that has words that you haven't seen before and you're not sure how to say them or read them, you might be able to figure it out, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you know what they mean. What is the definition of that word? I can read it, but what does it mean? So with Miss K today, we looked at the words around in a sentence that can help us figure out what a word is called, what it means. And that's called context clues. When we're unsure of the meaning of a word, we can look at the whole sentence. We can look at a sentence around a word and think, what do I think this word is meant to be? And if the text that we're reading isn't too hard, those clues can help us. And it is okay to use those clues to help you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over here to a diagram that I drew. And we're going to be looking for the word germination. Germination. So up here, we see a seed. This seed has an arrow, and it points to our word germination. And I'm going to say, what do I notice? Well, I notice in this diagram that there's dirt, that the seed is underground, and that when it says germination, there are these black squiggly lines coming out of it. My guess is that they're roots. I'm going to put my arrow here at the word germination. After this, we see seeds, stems, and roots are starting to sprout. Next, we see leaves are growing. Next, we see that there are flowers growing. And finally, it says seeds disperse. There's little things coming outside of the flowers. I think that those are the seeds. So in this, we see a circle, meaning that this is a cycle. And here is germination, part of the cycle. What part of the cycle is it? It looks like it's the part where a plant goes from just being a seed only to starting the whole cycle over again. And that's germination. So that's our guess based on what we see up here. Now, our other word of the day that we were looking at just now, not disperse, but pollination, is going to be in our paragraph. And our paragraph title says, the plant cycle. I'm going to read this out loud to you, friends, and I want you to listen for that word, pollination. The plant cycle starts with a tiny seed. Seeds disperse in many ways and find soil to grow in. As the seed grows into a plant, it develops leaves and roots. Once a plant flowers, birds and insects pollinate the flower and seeds develop once more. I didn't hear pollination, I heard pollinate, which is similar. So let's read that one sentence with pollinate in it. Once a plant flowers, birds and insects pollinate the flower and seeds develop once more. So using both our diagram and our sentence, can we figure out pollination? Well, we have some clues that can help us. What I'd like for you to do is turn to somebody in the room and give them your best guess for pollination. And we'll talk more about it again on Wednesday. Thank you for your help, readers. Have a good day.
Welcome. It's Mrs. Kraft, and today we're going to read a story and talk a little bit about what Miss Kathy introduced and Ms. Kay about seeds and germination. And we're going to read a story by an amazing author. You've probably read a book about him or by him before, maybe when you were younger, and maybe it's your favorite book now. The book that he wrote that you may be very familiar with is called The Hungry Caterpillar. Do you remember that one? Caterpillar crawls through and he eats everything in sight. It's an awesome book. This is by the same author, and his name is Eric Carle. And he wrote the book called The Tiny Seed. So we're going to read this today. The really awesome thing about Mr. Carl is he not only wrote the book, he also illustrated the story. So that's pretty cool. The book is published by Simon & Schuster. So, The Tiny Seed. But today when we read, I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit extra. So, I would like you to practice some active listening skills. And in order to do that, I want you to create kind of your own graphic organizer. Let me show you. So we're going to create a graphic organizer that looks very much like this. The book talks a lot about seasons. And so I'd like you to take a piece of paper, any paper, probably the bigger the better, and I'd like you to fold it hamburger, just like that, and then unfold the paper and fold it hot dog. Go ahead and make those creases, and then open it back up. Now, you can see it's been separated into fourths, right? Into 4 different squares. And what I'd like you to do is write the seasons on there. The first one is autumn. Let me spell that for you because it's a little bit different. So A-U-T-U-M-N, autumn. Sometimes we call autumn fall, so that might ring a bell with you. In the next square, I'd like you to write the word winter. W-I-N-T-E-R. But you probably knew that already. Let's go down to the bottom and write spring. I'd love you to sound that one out for me. Spring-ing. It has that I-N-G that Miss Kathy taught you. And then in the final box, I'd like you to write the word summer. S-U-M-M-E-R, summer. So our paper was divided into fourths for our 4 seasons that we have. So while I'm reading the book, I'm going to stop at times and have you fill in this with some information, and we'll talk about that as we go. All right. Are you ready? All right, let's go. The Tiny Seed by Eric Carle. Also illustrated by Eric Carle. It is autumn. A strong wind is blowing. It blows flower seeds high into the air and carries them across the land. One of the seeds is tiny, smaller than any of the others. Will it be able to keep up with the others? And where are they all going? One of the seeds flies higher than the others. Up it goes, but it flies too high, and the sun's hot rays burn it up. But the tiny seed sails on along with the others. So let's stop for just a minute and think about those seeds. So we're in autumn right now. We're in fall. And I want you to think about the fall. What happens in the fall? You go back to school. Yeah, we're so excited for that. And once you get back to school, think about what happens. The leaves start to turn and they fall off the trees, right? We think about jumping into piles of leaves. We also have pumpkins, right? That's Halloween time. So what happens during Halloween? I'd like you to take just a few moments to jot down some words that remind you of autumn. What are your favorite things about that time of year? Is it dressing up in your costume? Is it jumping into piles of leaves? Maybe raking the leaves. It's a lot of work to be done there, right? Or bagging the leaves. How about finding those beautiful colored leaves on the ground? And then what happens to the temperature? We go from summer and it starts to get a little chilly, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, so write down a couple of words that remind you of autumn or the fall season. All right, let's continue on our story. Another seed lands on a tall and icy mountain. The ice never melts, and the seed cannot grow. The rest of the seeds fly on by, but the tiny seed does not go as fast as the others. Now they fly over the ocean. One seed falls into the water and drowns. The others sail on with the wind, but the tiny seed does not go as high as the others. One seed drifts down into the desert. It is hot and dry, and the seed cannot grow. Now the tiny seed is flying very low, but the wind pushes it on with the others. Finally, the wind stops, and the tiny seed falls down gently to the ground. A bird comes by and eats one seed. The tiny seed is not eaten. It is so small that the bird does not see it. Now it is winter. After their very long trip, the seeds settle down. They look just as if they are going to sleep in the earth. Snow falls and moves them like a soft white blanket. A hungry mouse that also lives in the ground eats a seed for his lunch. But the tiny seed lies very still, and the mouse does not see it. Okay, let's stop for a moment and take a look at the chart that you made. Let's go over to winter. What are some things that remind you of the winter? You can look up and see the snow-capped mountains. Sometimes we get snow here, don't we? You can see the snow coming down into the sky, from the sky, right? Falling down gently. That might be the time where you drink hot chocolate, maybe some hot cider to warm up your body. The heat comes on in your school and your house. And maybe when you get into your car, if you take a car somewhere, it's pretty chilly. So let's think about those things that remind you of winter. What kind of holidays happen in winter? We definitely have a long break from school. Go ahead and jot a few words down that remind you of that winter season. Does the pictures in the book remind you of anything? Do you think of blue and white? You can jot down some colors. Okay. I've got some winter ideas, I know. Oh, wow. Now it is spring. After a few months, the snow has melted. It is really spring. Birds fly by, the sun shines, rain falls. The seeds grow so round and full that they start to burst open. Now they are not seeds anymore. They are plants. First, they send roots down to the earth. Then their little stems and leaves begin to grow up toward the sun and the air. There is another plant that grows much faster than the new little plants. It is a big, fat weed. And it takes all the sunlight and the rain away from one of the small new plants. And that little plant dies. The tiny seed hasn't begun to grow yet. It will be too late. Hurry! But finally, it starts to grow into a plant. Okay, so let's use some active listening now and go to spring. We are actually in spring right now, aren't we? It's April. All right. So what are you seeing outside when you look around? Are you seeing the sun shining? Are you seeing the birds chirping? Is the sky blue? What are you thinking about sun and springtime? Maybe you're seeing some flowers. We have spring flowers that grow for sure. All right, go ahead and jot down a few ideas about the springtime. Is the air warm yet, or is it still a little bit chilly? Kind of depends on the day, doesn't it? For sure.
All right. The warm weather also brings the children out to play. They too have been waiting for the sun and springtime. One child doesn't see the plants as he runs along, and oh, he breaks one. Now it cannot grow anymore. Look at the big foot coming down. We have to be gentle around the new plants, right? But the tiny plant that grew from the tiny seed is growing fast, but its neighbor grows even faster. Before the tiny plant has 3 leaves, the other plant has 7. And look, a bud. And now even a flower. But what is happening? First there are footsteps. Then shadows loom over them. Then a hand reaches down and breaks off the flower. Oh, somebody's picked the flower of his friend. A boy has picked the flower to give to a friend. Now it is summer. The tiny plant from the tiny seed is all alone. It grows on, and it doesn't stop. The sun shines on it, and the rain waters it. It has many leaves. It grows taller and taller. It is taller than the people. It is taller than the trees. Oh my, it is taller than the houses. And now a flower grows on it. People come from far and near to look at this flower. It is the tallest flower they have ever seen. It is a giant flower. All right, let's stop for just a moment again, and I know you're actively listening. Let's think about that summertime. What happens in the summer? What do you love to do? I know you're on break right now, but you're also going to have a break in the summer, aren't you? Where you can get outside. Oh, can you go for a swim? Go for a hike? Oh, yeah, lots of fun things to do in the summertime. So jot down a couple of words that trigger your imagination for the summer. Maybe something you've done or something that you really want to do this year. All right, good job. All summer long, the birds and the bees and the butterflies come visiting. They have never seen such a big and beautiful flower. Look at the colors. Now it is autumn again. We circled back around. The days grow shorter, the nights grow cooler, and the wind carries yellow and red leaves past the flower. Some petals drop from the giant flower, and they sail along with the bright leaves over the land and down to the ground. The wind blows harder. The flower has lost almost all of its petals. It sways and bends away from the wind, but the wind grows stronger and shakes the flower. Once more, the wind shakes the flower, and this time the flower's seeds open, and the seed pods come out. Out come many tiny seeds that quickly sail far away in the wind. Look at that. See how they blow and disperse? That's our word disperse that Miss Anna taught you. All right. So you've got some good notes about your seasons and some really wonderful words I know that you wrote down. If you didn't have a chance to do that, that's just fine. You can do this later. But what I would love to have you do is, because Mr. Carl actually wrote the book and illustrated it, I would love to have you do an illustration for each of your seasons. So read your words and then draw a picture of something that you're reminded of. And that's an awesome thing to have. So one more thing I wanted to do with you today while I'm here is talk about that word germination that you learned with Miss Kathy. She had that lovely poster up there that she told you about the cycle, how the seeds disperse and then they germinate. So I wanted to give you an idea of a project you could do with the help of a grown-up if you have somebody there that can help you. And that is to plant some seeds. We're going to see if we can germinate some. So let me show you what I have. I have some paper towel that I got kind of wet, right? So I put it in some water, and not soaking wet, but just wet enough. And I'm going to take that paper towel. I found an old jar. So I'm going to put that paper towel inside my jar, stretch it out a bit, and you can have any size jar. Mine happens to be big so you can see it, but you can definitely use a smaller jar. We're going to put this paper towel inside here, and then I have some seeds, a couple of different kinds. I have sunflower seeds, and that might be the kind of seed, right, that our giant flower was in our story. So that tiny seed became a giant sunflower plant. So you could take a few of those seeds, if you have them, and these are pretty big seeds. Sunflower seeds, you may have eaten sunflower seeds. And we're going to place those inside our jar. So in between the paper towel and the glass of the jar, you're going to place your seeds. Okay, so make sure they're kind of wet from the paper towel, right? That's going to give it the water to nourish it. And place those seeds inside there. I have another kind of seed that you might have at home also. And these are pinto beans. I don't know if you can see them. Let me hold them up. They are pinto beans, and I soaked these overnight in water, and they should sprout. So I'm going to go ahead and stick those in my jar also. Now be sure you ask a grown-up to help you with your jar and to see if you can have seeds before you take anything. So make sure somebody's helping you with that. I'm going to go ahead and place those seeds in my jar. And then I'd like you to take that jar and put it in a sunny window if you have one. And then we're going to come back in a few days. And I'd like you to do a chart. Day 1, describe what's happening inside your germination jar. Day 2, and I'm going to keep mine, and I will bring it back to show you. All right? So that's wonderful. We can be our own tiny seeds and see how they grow. All right. Thank you so much for sharing this wonderful story with me today and doing all that hard work. So you have a couple of jobs. Doing your germination jar and drawing some pictures with the graphic organizer that we created. Right.
Welcome back, friends. We are getting ready to start our writing portion of today's lesson. I just want to say how exciting it was to learn our word of the day with Miss Kay and learn some more words and practice finding out how to learn words in context with Miss Kathy. And what a wonderful story Miss Croft read to us about the tiny seed. So all of that stuff is leading up to our continuation of learning how to write an informational report. So we're going to quickly review what we talked about last week and then move on to what we are going to be doing this week that will get you nice and organized and set up to write your informational report before we're done with this unit. So let's go back to last week. Think back, and remember that the first thing we did was we brainstormed some ideas about different things that are interesting to us that we would like to write our informational report on. So I picked that I'm going to work on writing something about the night sky and the moon. That's going to be my report, but yours could be certainly around how seeds germinate, right? Or maybe how seeds disperse, or maybe both things would be included in your report. Or you can pick a different topic. Then we have our checklist that hopefully you have printed down or looked at online from our resource page that has the different parts that we need to go through to do our informational report. And what I just talked about was our brainstorming piece. I think we can check that off because everybody has brainstormed and picked their topic. So it always feels good to put a check mark in a box to say it is done. So hopefully that part is done. Then last week we talked about how to identify credible sources online. And that was what we did with this chart. And this chart can also be found with our online materials so that you can refer back to it if you can't see this one. And remember that We want to be focusing on .org, .edu, and .gov extensions when we are looking for reliable, credible resources online. So when you are looking for your sources, make sure that you're doing that. Now, I know a lot of students like to start with Wikipedia, and it is not the best resource, but it can be a good starting place to give you an idea of maybe other places to go to. So if you're using Wikipedia, okay, but it can't be your main source. It should just be a starting source, okay? So we are going to focus on nasa.gov today because that is both a reliable and a credible source. So hopefully you will find one for yourself around your topic to look at. Okay, so we are going to move into what we're going to learn today, which is this box. So I can check off this box because we know about how to find credible and reliable sources. So we are going to work on how to take some detailed notes today. Before I go to talking about the ones we can find online, I want to show you some things that maybe you have around the house. So maybe at your home you have some books already that are informational textbooks or informational books that have true facts in them. So you can certainly use those during your report. And I went around my house and kind of sifted through my children's stuff, and I found some books that we had on the moon. I found a book by Gail Gibbons called The Moon Book, which would be a great book if I was using that. Okay? Then I also found a book that is just on the moon, that will have a lot of interesting information that I could include in my report. I found one on the solar system, so I'm pretty sure that there might be a mention of the Earth's moon in a book on the solar system, so I might use that as one of my sources as well. The other thing I wanted to share with you is if you have magazines. Sometimes magazines have articles in them that might be nonfiction and might support the work that you're trying to do. So this one is a Kids Discover magazine, and it does have a lot of different things on the solar system. So if you have some magazines around the house that are of nonfiction, you can use these as a source for your informational report as well. But because maybe we don't have access to this type of material, since we're all staying home and staying safe, we might use only things that are found online. So back to what we were talking about last week. So we're searching for reliable and credible information that can be found online. So I have put into my search bar, I put in NASA, NASA.gov, G-O-V, and this is what came up. It came up with a whole list of things, and then, well, it didn't come up with a list of things. It came up with a search box, and I typed moon into the search box, and then this is the list that came up. So what I'm going to use today is this first one, and it is Earth's Moon is the title of the web page that it's going to take me to. So if we look at the graphic organizer that is included with your online materials, is this graphic organizer, and it has a place for the website that you're getting your information from, and then a place for you to write your information. Now I've put 2 on here, but you certainly can have more sources than 2. We're going to work on one source today together, and then I'm going to leave the second source for you to work on at home around your report. So you may not be going to nasa.gov, you may be going to a different informational website, okay? So right here where it says website, let's think about what do I need to write in that box. So I'm going to let you think about that for a second, and then I'm going to write it up here. Okay, so the website I went to is capital NASA.gov. And remember, when we're typing things in and trying to go to a website, there are no spaces, okay? No spaces. So nasa.gov, and then it pulled up this where it said Earth's moon, and that actually said www, which I didn't put on here, but most search boxes or search engines will put the www for you. Anybody know what www stands for? You guys are right. It means World Wide Web. You are so smart. So the other thing that I didn't put up here is because I specifically asked it to search for moon information. It has a backward slash, and then there's no space, moon, and another backward slash. So if I was going to type this in and you wanted to see the exact same thing I'm seeing here, you would type in www.capital.moon/, and it should take you exactly where I am. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to take me to another web page. And it has several different things about the moon, the Earth's moon. So now I have to decide which of these different areas is the area I want to focus on getting information for my report. So they have things on the Apollo, which was a spacecraft, a manned spacecraft that went to the moon. They have things about moon and Mars. They have another thing on the moon to Mars, around the moon with NASA's first launch of the SLS with Orion. And I have no idea what that is, but it sounds super interesting, so maybe I'll go back and read that. Then we have pictures from the space station, the International Space Station, that have pictures of a waxing gibbous moon. And that might be something that I would want to learn more about, because I remember that one of the books I have at home, right here, this book has a lot of information about the different phases of the moon, and maybe that's what I want to focus my report on. We'll have to see. Then they have an image of the day, and then the NASA Goddard media invited to the NASA's Lunar Surface Invitation Consortium. That sounds interesting too. So there's more stories down here. I can click on that, and let's see if there's something else that I want to look at. Oh, this looks interesting. I didn't know this, that there is an International Observe the Moon Night. So that's where I'm going to look at to get my first information. So International Observe the Moon Night. And that happens in October, it looks like. So I'm going to put on my notes, International Observe the Moon Night. Happens in October. And I'm assuming that that's each year, because last year it was October 5th. And let's see what else it says in here. Okay. And then I might look for some other information. It says that 52 countries participated. Okay, so that is how you take a note on a website off of the internet. So I want you to take a chance and do one for yourself, and then we'll talk more about what we're going to do with our notes the next time we get together. Okay, so we'll do that. I hope you have had a wonderful time learning with us today. I have had a wonderful time learning today with you. And I want to say thank you for joining us today for AP at Home with APS. Have a wonderful day.